So this new series is called Kagurabachi, and it is a new dark fantasy shonen, definitely a combat shonen, and it touches on some interesting themes and ideas, and it'll be really interesting to see where this series goes because it has the potential to match up to some other series that we cover on this channel and you see all around. So let's go ahead and start with what is this series about. So Kagurabachi basically follows the adventures or rather story of a character named Chishiro. Now, Chishiro is the son of a katana maker, and his father's name is Kunisigi, I think. Again, hard when they haven't come out with the anime yet. But if anybody knows how to pronounce it, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, they are katana makers. They end up making weapons, and we're not exactly told the exact structure initially of how this works. We do get some supplementary information in chapters 2 and 3, but for now it's left forever a mystery. We just know that they forge swords, and it seems strange. The only other character that seems to come by is Kunisigi's friend, Shiba. Now, outside of this, we're not given any other characters in the introduction of this story, but essentially, it's just Chishiro and his father, and they make katanas. Now, we're hinted that these katanas might be somewhat special, but it's not really brought up until almost the end of the first issue. In the meantime, we're just given that it's an incredibly arduous and skillful process to form a katana, and that it holds a lot of responsibility based on who you give them to, as they can be devastating weapons when provided to the wrong person. From there, it's kind of a lot of the early part of the first chapter details their home life, and it's a little strange. Kunisigi seems more childlike than Chishiro, which, isn't uncommon in manga, but it's almost played up in an interesting way. It's not unhealthy, there's clearly a good dynamic there. It's just kind of funny that at times Chishiro almost seems more responsible than his father. But one day, Mr. Shiba is essentially returning to their house to check on them, and he finds that it has been attacked. And in the process of it being attacked, something happened, and Kunisigi was killed, and all of his katanas were stolen from the house. Now, we are later basically given the impression that a organization did this, and Chishiro now wants vengeance on them. This may be the kind of selling outline of the story, but there is more that gets painted in later. They start off their search with the local Yakuza of the town which they're closest to, a good 3 years later. So this is also interesting that we have a 3-year time skip from the introduction of our characters to what will now be the rest of the main story, as Chishiro now kind of fits in the bracket of being an older shonen manga protagonist. Most shonen manga protagonists tend to be, 14 to 16. He's now pushing about 18. Kind of just interesting. We don't see that a lot now. I think the last time we had a character like that was probably Luffy or Natsu, depending on how you viewed it. And those are very different stories from this one. It's just interesting now we're having, again, an actual more closely to an adult main character. And probably for good reason, the rest of the first issue of this series, they go after the Yakuza because it turns out that the Yakuza in this world work with sorcerers because magic is real. And in the context of this series, we are given the impression that there is an arrangement between sorcerers and the Yakuza of this town. Chishiro and Mr. Shiba show up, effectively tear through the Yakuza ranks to talk to the main boss about it, who is less than compliant in the beginning. And while they are unable to get a lot of good information from him, they are able to save the life of a kid who was a local resistance leader. And in the process, when they question him about the sorcerers, he grows a tree from the inside. So that kind of is the end of the Yakuza lead. But during the process of this, we finally also got to see that Kunisigi was actually a sorcerer himself, and he could imbue his katanas with magic. Now, this is why it's so important for Chishiro to get revenge on those who killed his father. It's not just about the vengeance. He wants to recover the katanas. He wants to bring them home and keep them out of dangerous hands. although his hands are quite skilled and dangerous on their own, although because he can use a magic katana. It's the last katana that his dad made. And it ties in with these free goldfish that his dad acquired, and he can unseal it. And to be frankly honest, I'm not entirely sure how it works. It seems to have something to do with water. Like I said, the free goldfish will manifest, and I know that different types of fish can have different meanings or uses in Japanese, both ancient mythology as well as modern day superstition. I'm not sure what this is going to translate to, but it was an interesting battle to say the least. And then from there, we basically got some fill out in the subsequent two chapters. The most notable of which was, most importantly, we've gotten now two new characters. One is Hanao, who is a young lady who works as kind of a job broker for sorcerers. As I've said, they kind of drop the bomb that sorcerers are real in this world, and she gives us the upload of information that, they are hired usually kind of like mercenaries or as experts, and there's like over 1,000 of them in Tokyo alone in this version of Japan. She then is approached by a very young girl named Char. Now, Char is a witness to something. We're not sure yet because, like I said, there's only 3 chapters out yet, but she is essentially being hunted by a sorcerer. And Chihiro basically takes a liking to her, and as he's trying to ask her what she saw, because they think she might have seen where some of the enchanted katanas went, they're attacked. Next week, we'll get probably more information about who this particular sorcerer is and what she might have seen, but it's certainly established an interesting premise. We've now gotten some interesting information. Let's go a little bit more into it. So, while we don't have like a full breakdown on this universe yet, I can kind of see why it starts to appeal to people. Chihiro is a quiet protagonist. We actually haven't had somebody like this in quite a while in manga when you really think about it, because there aren't a lot of quiet protagonists. I mean, I guess technically, if you wanted to be specific, I would guess Ichigo might be considered quiet in some circumstances at least. And then I would probably say after him, the 2 quietest are Yuji from Jujutsu Kaisen and probably Tanjiro from Demon Slayer. Quiet contemplativeness and smart decision making is not usually focused on in a large majority of shonen mangas, so it's an interesting and refreshing change, to say the least. Another thing that is interesting is magic swords are cool. It's cool that we have them. It's cool to see what they might be able to do. We do know also there's other forms of sorcery. I mean, a sorcerer made a whole tree grow and explode out from a guy. So the series clearly isn't going to hold back with the idea that magic can have a physical effect on the world. Nor is magic hidden. It's an open and out there thing. Very different again from what a lot of more contemporary shonen have done now, where magic is more hidden. I think that, unless the world is fantasy, like One Piece, or in, certain series like that, like Fairy Tale, it's not common to have magic be hidden. It's, it was more common to have it out there. Today, though, a lot of the series tend to hide their magic systems, and that's common in various forms of media now. So it's kind of interesting that they're returning more back to a broader sense of everyone knows that magic exists, everyone knows that it is dangerous, and at least some people seem to be able to use it. We don't have a breakdown of what this magic system is yet, though we do know there is at least 2 forms of it. One that seems to be done specifically by sorcerers, and one where a sorcerer can imbue an item with a magic ability, because that's what the enchanted katanas are. So it's an interesting-ish power system for now, even though we don't know a lot about it. We've got interesting characters. Truth be told, it's not like it's the most comprehensive series, but I could see how this would appeal to a lot of people who liked things like Bleach, who like things like Fairy Tale, who like things, both in the dark and the light spectrum of shonen, because it kind of borrows aspects from both. How good is this going to be continually in the future? I have no idea, but I will certainly keep reading it with interest. Why don't you guys let me know if you have read this yet and if you enjoyed it.